All right, let's get started. We got one big bill and lots of little stuff. Let's do little stuff. Concurrences, Senate Bill 191.
Senate Bill 191, Prince George's County. This was the property tax credit for employees of the school system who live.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 581.
581, this is the Maryland School for the Blind school construction program.
Favorable. Second.
All those in favor? Well, we just so you know, we amended, it's a completely changed bill because we eliminated the revolving loan fund, as you may recall, during the budget process. And now this is just to give them an easier go about getting things through the IAC. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1077.
This is the one on the use of safety funds for the school security employees. The House struck everything that was added in the floor amendment and the out year funds. And so it's just authorizing the use for school safety employees, school security employees.
Any questions? Yes.
Yes, thank you. Now on this school security issue, who specific, tell me what the process is. In the schools, we have the security people, and then who's responsible for the finances? Does the state pick up a portion of, how does that work?
So there's a special fund, and these can be, these people can be paid for through the special fund.
So the school system has to be responsible for paying for security. And then what happens, who else is responsible?
No one to my knowledge. I mean,
It's a total responsibility of the school system?
They can get some money out of the state fund,
Oh, okay.
Right.
but the schools are ultimately responsible.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to the voting list. House Bill 289.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, House Bill 1012.
You guys are secondary. It's an identical to the Senate bill for state treasurer required surety bonds and insurance policies.
Favorable.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, all right, let's do it.
Like a winner.
House Bill 1524.
So House Bill 1524 is the Pimlico Plus, the redevelopment bill that rethinks the financing of the Pimlico project. I think we just had the bill hearing a couple days on the bill. There's been some discussions since that time about
It's Friday, wasn't it?
Friday, yes.
We had this bill hearing on Friday.
And there's been some discussions about some amendments over the weekend. And
Over the weekend. Yeah.
was there a weekend?
Yeah.
So you should have a reprint in front of you that largely reflects the amendments. There's some moving pieces here, so I'm going to walk through the bill and describe the amendments in concept. Some of them are changing a little bit. So we will start with the first item in the bill. If you want to follow along, it's on bill page 4 of 25. It's adding in a provision that will require that before a racetrack is sold in the state of Maryland, there needs to be 30 days notice to the governing body of the jurisdiction where the racetrack is located. Moving down that page, at the end of that page onto the next page, this.
Is 30 days enough notice for a jurisdiction? Yes, it is, huh? Sure.
Senator, I had the same thought. And is it from the time it's put to sale, or is it
Enters into a contract.
enters into a contract?
Right. So it's 30 day. I would assume these are big properties. There's probably a lot of discussion that goes on before a contract's entered into. So before 30 days before you enter into that contract would be when that local government needs to get notice.
Okay.
Thank you.
So bottom of that page, page 4 onto the next page, there is a mandate. That mandate is not this is changing. One of the things that's changing, it is going to be a fiscal 26 mandate on either operating or capital. It's going to be $6.2 million, and it will be for Prince George's County to use for cleanup related to either Bowie or Rosecroft, as needed.
So. So that we're making sure we're talking about it right. It adds to what was already done in the House.
Correct. I believe there was 3.1 million in the.
So
current
just so
capital
everyone
budget.
knows, the full program is 3.1 in this year's budget. And then we will be doing the appropriation for 6.2, so a total of 9.3 by the end of the 2-year period.
Right, correct.
9.3.
Okay?
Oh. Moving on to the next item, this is a few pages in, this will be on bill page 16. There is some new language in the middle of the bill that's going to require the MTROA to produce financial statements each year. And then beginning with the first full year of operations at the newly constructed Pimlico, if those financial statements come back with a profit, 10% of that profit is going to be distributed through the local impact grant formula for Baltimore City. For the communities, there's a section of the local impact grants that go to the communities around Pimlico, and that this 10% profit would run through that formula. And the next item is at the bottom of that page. This item adds members to the MTROA. It's going to add one member, voting members to the MTROA. It's going to add one member who represents the Park Heights Renaissance nonprofit, and then one member who's going to represent the community where the training facility is located. The next amendment is going to be on the next page. It's in the middle of the page. It's going to be the intent language from the General Assembly that lottery is going to run the racetracks game every 3 minutes. It's currently being run every 4.5 minutes. I think the idea here is that there's some pressure being put on the lottery fund at this point, and this will help make sure there's some additional dollars available within the lottery fund to help alleviate any pressure that is being put on the fund. At the bottom of that page, there is a new distribution from the lottery fund, which will be $3 million. That's going to be a supplemental local impact grant to Prince George's County. And that will go on in perpetuity to help. That money will go through the normal local impact grants. And so it'll follow that formula where a local development council makes a decision as to how to spend that money in and around the casino in Prince George's County.
Casino?
For the communities.
I don't know if the effect of the casino or the fact that you're closing the 2 other tracks. You know, in fact.
It is part of the-
May shut down.
What's that?
In fact, Rosecroft may shut down.
That's correct.
There's no end date on this.
So this money represents the local impact grants are 5.5% of VLT revenues from each casino. The small jurisdictions keep 5.5% of the total 5.5%. The big 3, MGM, Horseshoe, and Live, that all gets dumped into a pot. There's some money that gets taken off the top, and then there's some other distributions that happen, and then they divide by 3. So Prince George's hasn't been seeing 5.5% of MGM's VLT revenues. It's always some much smaller number. This money is to represent to help get them closer to what they would get if they were getting 5.5% of VLT revenues.
You know, how close?
So the estimates for fiscal 25 were they're about $9 million shy of 5.5%. It's, if they got the whole 5.5%, it should be about 26 million. They're currently getting about 17 million in local impact grants. So this will get them, if you look at fiscal 25 numbers, this will get them to, I guess, about 20 million.
What about the other two? Because that.
So Anne Arundel has a hold harmless.
I can't.
So Anne
It's not-
Arundel.
It actually, go ahead.
So Anne Arundel, their calculation's a little bit different, but they're required to receive the amount that they got in local impact grants for the year prior to when MGM opened up. And currently they're made whole from the lottery fund. Baltimore City, Horseshoe's VLT revenues have been going down. And so they actually were at a peak in the year before MGM opened up. So there isn't actually a deficit there.
Okay.
The formulas are complicated.
Thank you for asking. That is originally briefed to.
It never is.
So if we move on to the next page.
We've been through the machinations in a big way.
So the next page is adding a required distribution to the purse dedication account, to the thoroughbred side of the purse dedication account. If there's ever an operating deficit of the nonprofit that's going to be operating at Pimlico, it'll come out of the thoroughbred side of the purse dedication account. It doesn't start until the first full year of operation at the newly constructed Pimlico site.
Question. Is this the only way that the standard breads are affected?
This shouldn't affect the standard breads because the language is, the purse dedication account is segregated, and you have standard bread purses and you have thoroughbred purses. This money that would be paid to reimburse would come from the thoroughbred side of the purse dedication account.
Okay.
We're gonna go 2 pages over. It'll be bill page 17 at the top right. Here we're the bill as it came in would have had the Rosecroft RIFRA money. The formula going forward, they get about 10% of the RIFRA money. The bill as introduced would have redirected that money. This language is struck, and we've put back in the current distribution. That it's about 1.2 million a year right now. That 1.2 million is still going to keep coming in and go through the current law formula. Nothing is changing with regard to that distribution going forward. The 4.5 million that is built up in the Rosecroft account that's being transferred for Pimlico purposes.
For
Laurel. That is going to still stay in the bill, but there is a new subsection or paragraph 4 at the bottom of that bill, page 17. There is a mandate for 26 that is going to backfill that 4.5 million. So the RIFRA account will remain as it is.
Okay.
The next page, or the next amendment, is going to be all the way at the end. And it's bill page 23. In 2022, there was capital money in the capital budget for to be used for workforce housing, and it was originally housed underneath the DHCD. Last year's bill transferred that money around. This bill is going to transfer it again, and it's going to take that $10 million and it's going to provide a miscellaneous grant to Park Heights Park Heights Renaissance. And then in consultation with the DHCD and the MTROA, Park Heights Renaissance is going to use the money for workforce housing. And then the last amendment that
Senator Hedelman?
Question about this one piece. There is something called the Pimlico Redevelopment Community Compact. And that a bunch of different community groups and neighborhood associations and others can you tell me whether they have a role in this?
Um,
And that was
no.
a signed agreement with a lot of different folks. Do
So-
they have a say in this piece?
to the extent they have a say within Park Heights Renaissance, they would have a say.
Okay.
But this money, Park Heights Renaissance is gonna be the grantee on this money. So,
So, let me make sure that we're talking about all the same things. So I think that, so the distribution of income from the 10%
Right,
will go to all the groups,
right.
and, right? We got that right.
right, the way the current 18% goes.
And is
how
that part of the
yeah.
compact?
I believe so.
That's how I understand it.
Right.
Okay, but this piece, which has to do with
Workforce housing.
workforce housing that are gonna go around somewhere around the track,
Right.
is
Controlled
the
by
Renaissance.
the Renaissance Group.
And was it before?
Before, so in 2022, it was DHCD. After 2022, it wasn't really clear what the change was in 23. It would have gone to the Maryland Operations Racing Operations Fund.
I mean,
and-
originally it was thought to be on the grounds of whatever. I think it was
Right.
originally on the grounds of Laurel.
Right, it was originally meant for backstretch housing at Laurel, because they needed to rebuild the dormitories there. And so that was what the original 10 million was for. And then obviously last year, I think there was an acceptance that Laurel wasn't going forward. So last year, the money was just redesignated to a fund that it just was never used.
And now the housing obviously is not going to be on the grounds of Pimlico. It will be in the community.
Right. There are just a lot of interested parties in that community that might want to be involved in that process. And so that's why I'm raising it here. And it seems to me, and I'm nothing against Park Heights Renaissance at all, but I think we would want some of those other stakeholders to be involved here. And I'm
To
just trying
be
to,
put into the consulting
correct.
role of
And
it.
I'm just trying to figure out how to best do that.
Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just also lean in to say like Park Heights Renaissance role in that umbrella community. A lot of times they're the ones that spearheading a lot of the housing development right there anyway, just in general. So when you look at the project that Dan Henson is doing, like they're the ones that's kind of the ones at the ribbon cuttings. They're the ones that's kind of leading the efforts, and they're the ones that's the umbrella group that's moving in from that piece, which is why I would assume that the $10 million was housed with them.
So I don't think the senator is asking that change, but we've added the Department of Housing as well as the authority to have some consulting role with them. If you're looking for a consulting role for that organization, do you think there'd be a problem with that?
That was my said. I don't think consulting from that standpoint, but like it's clear that they are the umbrella group that's spearheading the housing development.
And we call that the compact?
Development Community Compact.
I believe there's a board
Right.
that for that compact. I've seen
Right.
the documents. I'll put in there next, so we'll have three groups for them to consult with. It'll be DHCD, the board of the compact, and the MTROA.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
We good, Corey? Okay. Yes.
Yes, I want to go back and ask that you talk with me about what happens with Oceans Downs and Rosecroft. What happens now? Where are they in this mix here?
So.
What happens? Because racing is still taking place, simulcast is taking place in Rosecroft. I drove down, took a look. There's still racing going on there. They still have simulcast. People are still attending Rosecroft. And I think that pretty much prevails with Ocean Downs. Talk to me a little bit, because I don't see where page 17 in the original piece of legislation takes care of either one of those tracks. Tell me what happens with Rosecroft.
So the way it's set up in the bill, or as amended, The distributions are all gonna stay in place, so Rosecroft money is still gonna come in at the projected 1.2 million and go into the Rosecroft account. The Ocean Downs account isn't being touched, and the Ocean Downs money will still come in and go into the Ocean Downs account. There is a provision in here that will, if live racing ceases to operate at Rosecroft,
Say that again.
if Rosecroft is ever shut down for live racing, that money that's in the Rosecroft side of the account will become available to Ocean Downs if Ocean Downs wants to go forward with RFRA projects.
So that shuts down,
No, no.
Nothing
If-
shuts down
As
Rosecroft.
long as Rosecroft keeps racing, then the money keeps accumulating in the Rosecroft account and is available for capital projects at the Rosecroft facility if the operator wants to pursue new capital projects at the
Okay,
Rosecroft
that-
facility.
somewhere along the line, I heard something about some money that's in a pot, that's in the pot. Is that 400?
The 4.5 million.
Where is that? What happens with that money?
So the 4.5 million is being transferred out of the Rosecroft account for this fiscal year. Starting in fiscal year 26, that 4.5 million is being replaced in the 26 operating budget.
So the reason that this is happening is because within the agreement, it put us in this place to begin with, right? The agreement that we're all talking about right now, the agreement with Stronix and the authority. They had decided in that agreement that 4.5 had to be transferred over to Laurel essentially to get Laurel up to certain standards so that Laurel could be used still through this transition period. But I was not happy with the idea of that money being lost from Rosecroft and subsequently possibly lost by Ocean Downs. So we backfilled that $4.5 million in there. So everything, all the money that would be in there is still going to be there.
So as long as there is evidence of racing at
That money stays there. They have theoretically the ability to use that for that purpose. It's everybody's assumption that the owners, the Stronix, once this is all done and consummated and moves forward, that they will sell that property. We don't know that for sure because it's not done, but it's what people think will probably happen. And at that point, when they cease the racing there, then that money becomes eligible for standard bred use, not just standard bred at Rosecroft, but standard bred use. And the only other track that's still going is the one at Ocean Downs.
Ocean Downs. Mhm.
Okay?
It really is unfortunate that we are here at the 9th hour talking about something that's so critically important. It really is. We're here at the 9th hour, and I'm just really sorry about that.
I share your frustration, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have one last amendment that isn't part of the package, but I can describe it to you. Is there's going to be a ground lease between the MTROA and the nonprofit, and the legislature doesn't have much say in that. So we're going to
Senator Jennings?
we're going to add in a provision that is going to require 30 days before entering that ground lease with the nonprofit. The Legislative Policy Committee needs to get notice and opportunity for review and comment period.
Comment, or do they have the ability to?
Stop it if we don't find it in our
So,
best interest.
so that would be a legislative veto. So we can't do that. The most you can do is review and comment.
Okay.
But in practice, review and comment, the state agencies, if you call them in and you have a review and comment period and you see something you don't like, that's going to be your opportunity to put pressure on the state agency to make changes that you want to see in there.
Okay, thanks.
Better? Yes.
Could I ask what type of changes that we could look at if we're gonna say that we would talk about that if we had the opportunity?
So the ground lease is gonna lay out the relationship between the nonprofit and the operating authority. The operating authority is the state entity. The nonprofit's gonna be operating. I'm assuming the ground lease is gonna say, how much do you need to put into capital reserves? How much should you be spending on upkeep? You know, just the sort of the nitty gritty of what the owner of that facility, which is the state, would want to see in there. And so that'll be when that information comes over from MTROA, that'll be your opportunity before they lock in that ground lease to look at it and say, hey, I want to see something about this. I want to see something about that. I think you should be putting more into your capital reserve. Just those sort of things would be part of that ground lease.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions? Is there a motion as an amended bill?
Favorable.
Do you have a question, Senator Jennings?
It's question slash statement slash, it's not fair to us to bring this to us in the 11th hour like this. A lot of people at the table, and I've gotten calls from people, and I'll be honest, I've been in the horse industry for 25 years. A lot of people sometimes you can't trust. Others just give you whatever they say to try to get you on their side. Governor's chief legislative officer, Eric Lukey, I trust greatly, and I've had conversations with him. I think the person I trust most in this, I spoke to over the weekend, was Tom Kelso, former chairman of the Stadium Authority. We spoke for almost an hour and a half on Saturday night, giving me the insight, the behind the scenes, letting me understand it a little better. I don't necessarily like the deal with the leasing of this, the Preakness. I mean, the $3 million with the 2.5.
The intellectual property.
Yes, the intellectual property. I was doing on Excel, at 2.5% after, what is it, 25 years, we're now at $5.5 million just for the running of this lease. As I said during the hearing, horse racing is under serious competition. I mean, look, now we're taking racetracks, the lottery game, and we're increasing that by a minute and a half to every 3 minutes. That has less people who are going to go out and actually bet on live horse racing. They're going to use that machine instead. That I don't know if the money is going to be there to support the lease of the intellectual property, the 2% payout of the gross handle for Preakness Day, that this thing will continue. I'm afraid we'll be here 10 years saying we got to refigure this thing out. And I'm being told that it's in statute that the Preakness cannot leave this state. The grade 1 stakes, it's here. It's ours. It's got to stay within the confines of the state to be run. But I'm taking a leap of faith with this vote. And the people I've talked to and I trust, again, Mr. Kelso was somebody, I've had other people reach out. I don't like what we've done to, in the beginning of this, structuring it to the standard bred, the way they were treated. It took the Senate to make them whole again. I will probably vote for it, but it's a vote that I'm nervous if it's the right vote. So.
I think, I think some of your feelings are well founded. I mean, there is uncertainty.
Yeah.
And there will be. And I share some of your concerns. And I certainly share the concern that we're doing this now at this moment. But however, this is what we have before us. I believe we've done the best we can to.
And I have utmost faith in you with what you've done. I know you've been working on it. Senator Quarterman, he and I've been talking. I know he's working directly with you. I trust this committee. And you know what? We've taken these leaps before. Was it 5 years ago? We were going to save racing by having the Laurel Super Track redevelop Preakness to a 2-week run course, and life would be great. And now here we are shutting Laurel down and doing so. You've asked for it. I will make the motion to move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we need to now deal with House Bill 289.
House Bill 289, this bill was, or is cross-filed with Senate Bill 375. This is the bill, the bills deal with prohibited provisions in state contracts. You do have an amendment, should have an amendment before you. The amendment, same amendment the House added to the Senate bill, which is on its way over. It just creates an exclusion from those provisions prohibiting certain provisions being in state contracts, provides an exclusion for any contract involving the operation of racing facility and training sites. So it's an exclusion from basically what you all just did. The idea on the original bills is that it was meant to avoid having to negotiate boilerplate languages for things like what you all just voted on. That's a deal that's going to have a lot of eyes on it, and all the provisions are going to be negotiated. So it's carving out something of that caliber from the original bill's requirements, so that you don't have any intended consequences or any conflict with what you just voted on.
Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Did we, are we getting the House bill? The Senate bill
The
back?
House bill is
The Sen-
passed second, so you'll be getting it hopefully sometime today.
We've already dealt with they've got the Senate bill.
They have the Senate bill. They're sending it over with the same amendments that you just voted on for House Bill 489,
Very good.
289, sorry.
Very good. What other things did you guys have?
I have a bill you all are secondary on. It is House Bill 773. This is an exact match cross-file to Senate Bill 597. This is the Individuals with Disabilities and Service Disabled Veterans Voting Fund Program. The House struck the targeted funding requirements.
Yep.
And my understanding is that there'll be a concurrence on the Senate bill when it
All
comes.
those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
That's all
Other
I
than that,
have
we
right
got, we got one more. And then we're gonna go to, we have time to do 243, I think, after that.
Two pre-concurrence.
Let's do it.
Okay, I have two pre-concurrences. The first one is Senate Bill 440, which
Before we get
is,
into that, just want to thank Senator Hayes while he's here. We've already gone through. We finished and it passed unanimously. Thank you for all your assistance during the process. Okay,
Senate Bill 440 is the venison bill. The House amended the bill to reduce the credit from $600 to $300. And
Senator Alfred, you have some comment about this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, the program has sunset, so it doesn't even exist right now. We tried to give a more generous credit from at $75 a piece, and then limit it to $600 per. The House, I think, was only comfortable at $300 per person. I move that we concur with the House.
Okay, all those in favor and concurrence? Opposed? Okay,
And the other pre-concurrence I have is for Senate Bill 202. The House changed the definition of family member to include persons that are at least 60 years old, they have Alzheimer's, or they have a child or adult with a developmental disability.
Which one was that?
202 is the healthcare,
Oh, this was Senator Benson's bill?
yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Philip? Sure.
Real quick, Senate Bill 375, you all just voted House Bill 289. That's Senate Bill's on its way over with the same amendments if you wanted to pre-concur.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay,
All right, House Bill 243, you should have a reprint on your desk.
243. One more to do here.
This is the bill making revisions to the tax sale process. These amendments are what you had been discussing before. The main substantive changes on the amendments are, you'll see on page 2. This is new language added clarifying that for non-owner occupied residential property can go to sale for unpaid water and sewer charges, subject to the provisions of 14A49.1, which you'll find on page 11. The remainder of the bill is generally extending statewide provisions related to abandoned property. The other main change on page 6, as it came over, the House cap or the House language stated that 10% was the redemption rate for owner occupied residential property. I've been informed the intent was that that should say may not exceed 10%. So that cap would only be up to 10% for owner occupied residential property. The timelines for the process for filing to foreclose, there's a 3-month extension, taking it out to 12 months. And then on page 9 of the reprint, this is some additional language. Last time you all were discussing this bill, there was some question about the notice provisions to tenants. Current law requires a notice to be sent, certified mail return receipt, when the purchaser of the tax sale certificate is filing the action to foreclose. There was discussion last time concerning about the timeline related to when that foreclosure proceeding has been concluded, and then the tax sale purchaser who acquires property is then planning on taking possession of the property. Current law requires 30 days notice. What you have before you on page 9, at the request of Senator Hendelman, it would extend that timeline from providing the notice from 30 days before taking possession to 90 days. There was also some discussion about the method of providing that notice. So on the bottom of page 9, that notice for taking possession currently requires first class postage prepaid, bearing a postmark. The reprint before you added return receipt. And then on the filing page, it's going to be unnumbered. There was also a requirement that within 1 day of sending out that notice, the notice be posted on the property.
Senator Corrigan.
All right. So back on page 2, it says they can withhold a non-owner occupied. But then you gotta flip to page 11, it says the opposite. So I guess I'm trying to figure out.
So the page 11 provisions are very confusing because it's like double, triple negatives.
Right, so I guess the bottom line, Bill, this is if it's owner occupied and they don't pay the water bill, can it go to?
No sale.
Huh?
No sale,
It cannot get a tax sale.
not just for water. If it's owner occupied residential.
If it's non-owner occupied and someone doesn't pay and the owner, the property owner doesn't pay the water bill.
Under
Really go
the bill with these amendments, it would be authorized provided the lien was at least $350 and it's 3/4 in arrears. That's the provisions on page 11. So page 11, that 14A49.1 currently only applies in Baltimore City. And in Baltimore City, the way it currently operates is it's no residential property or religious property. Under the amendments in the city, it would change, it would narrow that residential property prohibition to owner occupied residential property. But then for the rest of the state, it would be adding in the protection for owner occupied residential property, as well as the religious properties. Senator Hellman says comment on first. They're in here.
You already described it.
Yeah, page 9.
Senator Hendelman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if we could, instead of having return receipt requested, because that requires someone actually have to go to a post office box, that we sort of make it a little more efficient process and say certificate of mailing and contemporaneous posting on the property.
Do you want certified mail posted pre-page without the return receipt? Currently, yeah, the way it reads currently, it's first class postage prepaid, return receipt requested. I think the issue with the return receipt is that if someone's not there, they then have to go to the post office to to pick it
Right,
up.
but isn't there something called a certificate of mailing so that there's proof provided that
I think
something was
certified,
actually mailed?
certified mail. So make that certified mail postage prepaid.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Sure.
All right, that's Matt Hill, Public Justice Center. Certified mail is different from certificate of mailing. So we do this a lot in the landlord tenant context. Certificate of mailing just means you get something from the post office saying, I sent it. It's very cheap. It's like $1. Certified mail is more expensive, and it's even without return receipt is going to require somebody to sign for it. So in landlord tenant, we use certificate of mailing instead of certified mail. Thank you.
So would that be first class mail, or like how would you just
It is first class mail with certificate of mailing is the,
first class mail,
What we
certificate of
call it.
mailing?
thank you.
Any further questions? Any further questions?
Quick question.
Senator,
Thank you,
Bailey?
Mr. Chair. I was just curious as I was going through the bill and I was looking at the different rates. If I go to bill page 5, help me, Philip, what is the rate for St. Mary's County? It looks like all 23.
So
23 jurisdictions.
none of, most of those numbers are not going to be accurate. The annual tax sale ombudsman, so the way those numbers read is those are kind of like a starting point, but all those provisions also say or as set by the county. So all the counties have kind of set their own. So pulling from the most recent tax sale ombudsman report, you wanted St. Mary's? Their redemption interest rate is 6%.
Okay, even though they're not listed.
I think they're in a group. Hold on, it's not actually alphabetical. Oh, maybe they're not listed. No, you're right, sorry. Yeah, St. Mary's is 6%, according to the fiscal 22 numbers in the tax sale ombudsman report.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to comment on, I appreciate that this is a complicated bill and we're trying to make everybody a little bit happy here. And Senator Hedelman worked very hard with Senator McCray on the amendment in front of us that I think extends the notification to renters that are really important here. And I know that there's a couple of other outstanding issues that we might need to come back next year and work on in terms of making sure, this point Senator McCray always makes, we have sustainable water systems across the state. And I think we need to think a little more about that next year. But in the meantime, I think this bill as amended is a really great product and move favorable as amended.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
And it's
I'm sure it's gonna be a great one.
touche. So this is primarily for Philip. So we had a bill that got voted out of the appropriations this morning. The automatic enrollment bill. We got that. And there were some amendments. I'm not sure if we need to do something here or just concur when it comes over.
They just, so I haven't even seen the finalized.
Okay.
Amendments to look at. I think I need to take a look at those.
Okay, all right, cool.
We need to do anything with the capital budget? We need to do something for the capital budget. As long as you want that to work.
Senate Bill 361 is on third reader in the House. There are some additional amendments that the House planned to make, but the idea was that we would, if it's your wishes to pre-concur, as time is running short. All that.
Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There's no changes to the capital budget that hurts any member of the Senate here. We've kept everything that we care about. The House, based on the timing of the capital budget, we aren't going to go to conference, but the amendments that are going to be added today on the House for third reader
are just funding local legislative bond initiatives that are important to their members. But the projects that were funded by the Senate that left this chamber are in the same posture. They may have been added to by the House, but nothing was cut by the House. And if they were, you were already notified, but there were no cuts. So the thought is just to save time, we would pre-concur, given that the Senate, the posture of the capital budget as it left is pretty much the same on our stuff. It's just that they added further miscellaneous projects and legislative bond initiatives.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go.
And I think we have one more prior auth bill.
I think we don't, I think Philip said, somebody said they didn't look at it yet. Is that right? Different bill, different bill.
I think it's House, is it Senate Bill 966?
Yes.
Appropriations just voted it this morning.
Okay, we can either do it now, Mr. Chairman, or we'll later. It's up to you, sir. There's nothing in there that any changes have been made.
Right, we'll be back a little bit.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you all.